Hi everyone, it's Jim here, and I'm going to show you how to do the quite tricky checkmate with king, bishop and knight against the lone king. And I'm going to try to explain a method which really is based on just where each piece is going to move to, which path it's going to follow, and in which sequence or which order it's going to go there. And hopefully if we follow this method, we'll be able to do this checkmate without having to calculate too many variations or visualize too many tricky positions. And let's give it a go and see if this method works. Just the basics, of course, first with king, bishop and knight. Although it's possible to checkmate on the edge and then checkmate with the knight, it's much more natural to checkmate in one of the corners. And to checkmate in the corner, let me just adjust my screen a touch. I'm going to show you a checkmating position, fairly typical checkmating position. If I just bring it into view. The king is in the light squared corner, which is controlled by a bishop. Let me just put it on c2 to begin with. The king on b6 controls the escape on a7 and also b7. The knight controls the b8 square. I make the bishop e4. That's a checkmate. Okay, it's not so easy to checkmate anywhere else. You have to get the king into the correct corner. We talk about the right corner and the wrong corner. So what I'm doing, if your opponent's a good player, they will probably know that even though they have to retreat their king, if they move it to a corner where the bishop doesn't control it, such as in our case here on h8, then they'll be safe from checkmate. So we're just going to look at the final part of this. We won't look at this stage at how you get the king towards the edge of the board and towards the corner, but that's actually not so difficult as your three pieces work together, as long as you remember to keep your king very active. Okay. Now the method we're going to use, I'm going to explain what each piece will do. The king will move to e6, d6, c6 and b6, and that's all. It will never leave the 6th rank or back 3rd rank, and it will never retrace its steps. So it will never go to f5, it will never go to e7, never go to e5, and once it's gone from f6 to e6, its next destination is d6 followed by c6, never back to f6. Let's just keep that in mind. It'll become more clear when we actually start making the moves on the board and following the method. Knight, you may have heard of the W maneuver, and what that means is if I take my knight on g5, it's going to follow this route: f7, e5, d7, c5. That's a W, upside down W, if I just trace the squares for you. The knight from there principally only wants to go to e6. We saw that, if you recall, in our checkmating position. Occasionally, you'll find the knight will go to b7 and back to c5. You can probably work out the reason for that. The knight's controlling dark squares. It's going to control h8, f8, d8 and b8. And that's why at some point, if the king's on d8, you might play knight b7 to chase the king over. Okay, but that's all the knight's going to do. It's never going to deviate from the W, so you know what squares it's going to go to, what one it doesn't. The bishop's job, of course, is to ultimately give checkmate, but it's also to control the light squares. Okay, so it will control g8, e8, c8, and ultimately the checkmating square on a8. Bishop's also got another function. It makes what we would call a waiting move. A waiting move in chess is when you make a move which doesn't actually improve your position. In fact, it just holds it as it is, and you're waiting for the opponent to make a sort of compulsory or force move, moving away from the best square they're on, so that you can then carry out your plan. Okay, we'll see an example of how that works in just a moment. So let's have a look at how we put that in practice, because it's much easier if we visualize the position. Chess is a very visual game, and seeing where the actual pieces go and practicing this and seeing what works and what doesn't work is by far the best method to actually learn how to do it. So I'm going to recommend it. I'm going to show this method. I'm going to recommend you practice it. You try your own ideas, try different things, come back to my method. And all the while you'll be building up your knowledge, you'll be building up your pattern recognition, you'll be picturing or visualizing the position. Okay, so we've got the king close to the wrong corner and we want to drive it across the board, all the way across to A8. What would be a logical first step? I'm going to follow the pattern I described. I'm going to follow the idea that in order to find my move, I ask myself, where is it the opponent wants to go to escape or to prevent being cornered? And I'm going to prevent that. If I can prevent my opponent making a move he wants to, I've probably got a good position. Probably got the correct move. So I'm going to try knight f7. My reason is it follows the beginning of a W pattern, but most importantly, it controls the dark square h8, which no other piece will be able to do quite so well. If you notice, the king on f6 controls g7, the bishop on e4 controls h7. A key part of this is to have the three pieces working together to cooperate, to share the control of each of the squares. So I think we can see that black must play king f8. What would be logical now? I ask myself the question, where does the where does the king want to go to? Well, he's only got e8 and g8 available. And logically, the king wants to go back to g8 because he'll be safe as long as he stays away from the opposite corner over on a8. Yeah. If I go to e8, I'm going towards that corner. I don't mind my opponent doing that. So for that reason, I choose to move bishop h7, cutting off the king from g8. The king must go to e8. Now, this is the first critical moment. Which piece am I going to use to prevent the king from escaping? Where does the king want to escape to? The answer is the king wants to escape to, could be f8, but could also be d7. Because if he gets to d7, it's only a small step to c6 and d5 or whatever, or c5, b5, back out towards the middle of the board where he can't be trapped, or to the wrong corner. So I need to stop the move king d7. Now, which piece am I going to stop it with? Okay, if I stop it with the bishop f5, I haven't really progressed because after king f8, what's my next move to stop the king manoeuvring? If I play bishop d7, the king is running back towards the corner he wants to go to. If I play bishop h7, king e8 restores the same position. So the bishop's not really well placed to control that square. What about the king? Well, it'd be very easy to play the move king e6, which certainly looks logical. Problem is, king's job was also to control the dark square g7. So if I go back to f8, according to my system, I can't really move my king back, but the move I really want to play is king f6, because otherwise the king is coming out. All right, the king's escaping. We want to drive him along, predominantly along the back rank. We'll see in a moment that the king does escape briefly towards the left-hand corner on a8. So I'm going to pop the king back on f6. I'm going to pop the king back on e8. So just to be clear how we got to this position, we started here. So we played knight f7 first, king f8, bishop h7, king e8. Okay. So it's not